Okay. Welcome to episode 16 of the Danso Experience.
Yup.
This is a very, very special episode for those tuning in right now. I want to first send our condolences to any family or friends, members of the community that may have been affected by the COVID 19. We pray for a speedy recovery for the lives that are lost. Again, our prayers to the family, friends, and community service individuals that have helped in making sure that we have this controlled. Also, I want to give a special thank you to our Spotify as well as Apple Podcast listeners, as well as YouTube viewership. We couldn't do this without you. Again, this is episode 16 of the Danzo Experience. I want to first bring in my co-host. I know you guys haven't interacted with him in a while, so I want him to introduce himself and just kind of give a few words before we get into these topics. Go ahead, Ramy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charles. This is Ramy here checking in. I'm always excited to come in and do these podcasts alongside Charles. And absolutely, I want to send my biggest regards and condolences to anybody that has lost anybody during the COVID crisis. And I really hope everybody is staying safe, staying healthy, and, continuing to persevere through these tough times. There's always opportunity in the chaos. So I hope you're all hanging in there. And, here we are from our homes, as you see, trying to record podcasts for you so that we can keep pushing and, creating opportunity from this chaos for you. So I hope you enjoy this episode we got for you today.
Yeah, definitely. As my colleague articulated, is we're doing this much like most people doing their work, doing their activities from home. For the safety of ourselves, we couldn't actually get into the studio, but that's okay. We got a lot of content for you guys, a lot of great information surrounding COVID-19 that we're going to share with you guys. I want to first, before we get into these topics, actually give the subject heading of the topics we will be covering. I first want to start with the effects of COVID 19 for immigrants in the workplace. I think that's very crucial, very important. 13.7% of immigrants make up the US population, and they work a lot of extremely important jobs that we kind of took it for granted, excuse me, so, just kind of highlighting the effects of what the government is doing with banning immigrants, how that kind of affects the economy in the long term. We will be going through that. Also, we will be discussing financial moves to make during COVID 19. I know a lot of people got those stimulus checks. We know. So we know we're here to just kind of give a breakdown of not even just stimulus checks. We know other individuals are also facing unemployment. What can you do with these unemployment benefits? What to do and not to do in this COVID-19 pandemic. We'll be covering that as well. And the last topic, which a lot of our audience on the Danzo Financial Group page have kind of asked us, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, which is, are my stocks still good during this COVID-19
Mm,
pandemic? We will highlight that. But I first want to start off by highlighting, as I articulate, the effects of COVID-19 for immigrants in the workplace. As I first articulated, I want to throw some stats at you guys just before we actually get into the deep part of this topic, which is 13.7% of immigrants are in the U.S. population. Of that, 31% work in hotels and in the lodging industry. 22% work in the food service industry. 43% are small hotel and motel owners, and 37% of small business restaurant owners are immigrants. And the most important, which I think I would like to highlight, the most essential, and I want to say thank you, 27,000 dreamers are medical workers or work in
nice.
the medical workforce. So, again, as I've highlighted, the importance of just having immigrants in this country, what they do for us. My parents are immigrants. Ramy's parents are immigrants.
Yep.
They've made a life for us. They made a life for our siblings and through the generational of our kids as well. When that time comes, we couldn't have done it without our parents. So I want to first say thank you to the immigrants,
Absolutely.
for those that are working right now. We know with everything going on, we're not going to get political, but everything going on, we're just saying, please, you're not forgotten. We want to highlight today's episode to kind of bring to light how that kind of you guys are so important, that you guys actually are affecting a lot of things within the economy. As I said, with hotels, even with 21st century hotels, Airbnb taking a hit in the market. You
Absolutely.
also have so many things, small business um owners, excuse me, in terms of funding, where is that actually going? Who's actually getting it? You see a lot of these companies that don't really need it because they have buybacks and stock buybacks, excluding, like, let's start with Shake Shack. They
Shake
said
Shack.
they gave back 10 million. There's a lot more others. Even with educational systems, Harvard has a 40, I think, a million or $1 billion endowment that they're still trying to collect, and it took a CNN guy and a lot of these other individuals before they actually gave that money back. So we want to highlight in terms of, like I said, the small business owner, the immigrant, the individual of color, black business owners as well. They also face this, where they're not getting enough funding as needed. So, Ramy, I kind of want to bring you into this, just to kind of discuss what are methods that maybe individuals of color, immigrants as a totality, what can they do to kind of mend this in terms of the job losses, the lack of funding for businesses, the lack of resources that they have right now. I think it's like, what, 27 million individuals are unemployed right now.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah.
as of late, if you've been watching the news, the rate of unemployment is at historic all-time highs. We haven't seen something like this since the Great Depression, where in terms of level of unemployment, we were down to like 3% in the last few years. It was really like we were chilling on a very low level of unemployment, and then for all of a sudden to double, triple, quadruple into the levels that we are in now, with 20 something million people filing for unemployment in the last week or two. It's unheard of. But I mean, the government is trying to pass these, I mean, not trying, they have passed different waves of funding for small businesses, as well as individuals. If you mentioned the stimulus check,
Mm-hmm.
individuals get that. Then there's small business loans and loans for corporations. But the problem I've seen, as you mentioned, is that like a lot of these large publicly traded companies are getting a large chunk of the money,
Mm-hmm.
large chunks of the money, and not all of them have been like Shake Shack, which you mentioned, gave back their government loan, their government stimulus, because truth be told, they could probably survive and thrive without it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of companies that are not giving back that financial assistance. I mean, things that people can do, there's plenty of jobs that are still essential workers. There are places that are hiring. So you can I was listening to Governor Cuomo, because we're
Mm-hmm.
from New York.
Mm-hmm.
He's our governor here, and he's kind of become a big figure in the spotlight because we're the hardest hit city, hardest hit state in the nation by far.
Mm-hmm.
So you were really following his lead. And he said, somebody asked him, like, what can we do? There's no jobs out there. He's like, you can get a job. You can get a job in an essential worker. Get a
Yeah.
job in an essential worker. And some of those industries include, sanitation. They include healthcare. They include volunteering at hospitals. They include, there are plenty of places putting forth many initiatives to feed, to take care of. Um, my parents are essential workers,
Mm-hmm.
but that could mean a variety of things. My mom
Mm-hmm.
is an engineer. My uncle is currently a mechanic. So you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of realms that people don't realize are still
Mm-hmm.
open, are still
Mm-hmm.
functioning, and all hands on deck. I wanted to touch on this real quick while we're on the subject of
Mm-hmm.
immigrants.
Pardon me.
That
Mm-hmm.
this, like, if you watch the news, sometimes things get very polarizing. We're
Mm-hmm.
not here to talk politics, but you've heard things such as, this virus started here. It's these people to blame. Let's shut these people out, and then it leads to this disparity in what people know is true and what they believe. And honestly, this isn't a race issue. This isn't a rich versus poor issue. This is a human issue. Anybody can catch this virus, and anybody can face very ill effects from it. So we need to stand in solidarity, and we need to see each other as, all being a part of the solution, instead of only certain people are to blame. I don't see any positive outcomes coming from that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of what you were discussing, just for those that may be furloughed, and for those that may not know what furlough it is or layoff, I would definitely check the definition of those. But to give a quick summary, Furlough is basically for the workers that are still employed by the job, but they basically tell you to go home. In terms of where you don't actually get paid for it, and layoff is just completely let go from the company. So, as Ramy kind of articulated as well, just to kind of piggyback off what he was saying, there are industries in high demand right now. Of course, we recommend being safe, safety first, most important. But for those that may be able to get, and both furloughed and laid off workers obviously can get part-time work right now.
Yes.
And as he kind of just articulated, just to give a quick breakdown of, in terms of certain industries that right now, as he kind of articulated, but I will give you a more detailed uh, summary of it, is one, medical. If you work in the medical workforce, we're not talking about being a doctor. Obviously, we know you have to go to school and
Can't
everything
just
for
pick
that.
that up. Can't just pick up
Yeah,
a white coat.
exactly. But we're speaking about more so, if you work in an administrative work, a lot of people, you can pick up a phone, you can make certain calls. That's in high demand right now if you're trying to look in the medical workforce. Grocery stores and supermarkets are always essential, so they're always looking for work. I think that's very important to highlight.
Delivery people.
Deliver people.
Lots of delivery services are booming, right now.
Yes, yes. Cleaning services as well. Cleaning services is actually quite important. The reason being is a lot of these companies, like I just articulated, that might be in the hospitals and just the grocery stores or even people's homes, essential workers going back and forth. They need people right now that can kind of come in right now, clean up, sanitize the areas that they need where they might not have the time to do, or they might be overstaffed where they don't have the certain individuals to actually clean. They just have people doing like deliveries. I was reading the news and they were saying like how UPS is overstaffed. Like the workers don't even have time to even sit down for lunch. So it's just
Oh,
crazy.
they're
Like
understaffed.
oh yeah, understaffed.
Oh,
Excuse me,
okay.
understaffed in the scenario of cleaning. Like in terms of having someone that could just clean. They're so busy because everybody right now is basically like the UPS's, Amazon's, excuse me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's right now home. Everybody's needs a delivery. I literally see a package at my neighbor's like every day when I go get the mail. So I can only imagine what you put that in the proximity of millions of individuals, how crazy that could be.
And the crazy part is that people think they're not hiring, but like places that do need workers, they have probably the least amount of workers they've had in decades. For example,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people that if you call in your boss and say, I'm fear for my safety, I'm not going to come into work today, they can't force you to. So as an ethical employer, so not only do these, as you mentioned, they have to clean all their surfaces, they have to wear gloves, they have to do all these things that are either slowing down their jobs or making the jobs extra steps, such as cleaning packages before you drop them off. Like, there's more work to be done with less workers. So
Mm-hmm.
trust me, there is a demand and there's less of a supply, and basic economics shows that is good for the person that is looking for work right now. And you do not have, again, if you are furloughed, you are allowed to still work on the side. Do
Yes.
not, you're not getting paid, you can work on the side. Do not say sit back.
Yeah, during this, as Ramy articulated, during this COVID-19, the government is allowing furloughed workers obviously to find part-time work as well to just kind of make ends meet. And for our small business owners that might have staff that are kind of maybe not getting the funding for loans through the SBA, which is the Small Business Association, for the stimulus check, what small businesses get is called the PPP loan, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, for me, I'm not going to force anybody to basically go get a loan. I've always been against loans, just from personal experience and in terms of what you always have to pay back. Because if you're loaning something to somebody, as Ramy articulated from even our past posts or past podcasts, is you're always going to have to owe. So the question becomes, how much do you have to owe? But just for those that may be interested as well, just to kind of add on to the businesses that may be, having to let go of certain workers or whatever the case is, just hold off for a second because I just want to do a run through real quick with my colleague Ramy just to kind of give a quick breakdown. So for those that are actually wanting to apply for the PPP, I would actually read the guidelines and see if you can actually qualify and what you're going to have to pay back, which is yes, you do have to pay back. A PPP loan is a term with an interest rate that is not a grant. So that's very important for those to pay attention to because, like I said, it depends on what type of business that you have. Certain small businesses get more funding than the other business. It's not like a general grant like some type of student loan grant where it might be spread out equally. The thing with this is certain businesses may get more funding, as we kind of articulate, like a Shake Shack, which really doesn't need it because they have so many franchises within the company itself. So that kind of doesn't really help, as opposed to maybe the small business that might be in your neighborhood that might need the funding, or the minority owned business that might need the funding. So that's where a PPP can be very skewed. So that's very important to read those guidelines. Again, it has provisions for forgiveness of the loan. If you meet those provisions exactly, and you don't change, and you don't change, the SBA and government will allow you to have that. But the thing is, what they will ask, and like I said, I want you guys to kind of go and read this. You can read this through the SBA website, as well as, just type in PPP on Google. They'll give you a quick breakdown as to see if you're eligible. And if you are eligible, like I said, what you're going to have to pay back in the long term in terms of the interest rate. Because like I said, this is not a grant. This is something where the interest does accrue on this loan. Um, a few scenarios I want to kind of give out, and I'll bring Ramy in this. For those small business owners that are thinking about laying off, I would say lay off your worker as a last resort. There are things you can do.
Oh, yes.
Leadership can go without pay. If you're willing to, sacrifice a couple weeks, where those couple weeks in terms of the type of money that you get, because obviously I'm sure you make more of the money as a leader, as a manager, as opposed to your workers. Sacrifice maybe a week or two if you want to do that, where you can kind of cover a couple weeks for your worker, or even a couple months. I think that's something that you could look at. You can volunteer to go without pay for those that, and that can go for both any manager or any stockholders, if you own maybe a little bit bigger of a company, and doesn't necessarily have to be like I'm not thinking of like a huge company, but somebody that might be invested in your company as a small business. You can go without pay. That's also something. Another thing you can do is skip a paycheck so no one is laid off. Like I said, depends how long you guys want to do that. Management, you can speak amongst your small business workers. Ramy, come in.
I guess it depends on. I really feel that depends on the management style and the company directive. Which way
Mm-hmm.
the company is headed. Some companies are very revenue driven, and some companies are very reputation driven.
Mm-hmm.
For example, where I work, on our conference calls, without revealing too much, but it was made a top priority that they do not want to let anyone go. Their priority was to make sure everybody stays employed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that might not be the case everywhere. I know a lot of places that instead of thinking of other methods, they slashed a quarter of their workforce, half their workforce, whatever it may be. But in a
Mm-hmm.
place like mine, where they wanted to preserve all the jobs, I mean, something's got to give.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you guys, whoever's listening, you have to understand that every industry is hit in some way by this COVID crisis. I mean, I'm sure there's some that are thriving, but there are many that are hit. As you mentioned, the hotel business, the lodging business, the food business, the advertising business. I'm in advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So clients are pulling out left and right because either their products aren't selling, people aren't buying, or people need their money for other things. They just can't advertise right now.
Mm-hmm.
What ended up happening was the top managers, or the senior leadership, as you called it, they took hits on their commissions. We're gonna stop doing commissions on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
That preserved countless jobs, by the senior leadership doing that. But again, it's a conversation that's worth having with your HR, with your CEO, with your senior leadership, because there's alternatives here and there, but it really is not going to come down to one. It's not, if I came and said, hey, I'll give up my paycheck to save someone's job, that's really not going to do much as a lower level person on the corporate structure. But somebody on the higher up, if they can agree on something, they could really save a lot of jobs. So it's a company effort, and it really depends, but I'd say it's definitely worth. Don't be silent. Don't just let yourself be tossed here and there. Try to fight for your rights. Try to fight for the rights of your employees or alongside you. And a lot of companies are really sympathetic to this moment. They want to save your jobs. Can't speak for everybody, but as much as possible. So don't be a victim and just get tossed away. Where possible, fight for your jobs and see what can work out. Pitch some of these ideas to them. I suggest.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not gonna necessarily disagree with what he's saying because, like he said, you just never know. Especially this is a sensitive time, so a human is a human. It just depends on the type of human. So some
Right.
management might see it where they will assist. Some might just say whatever the case is. The last point I would just make to management is use furlough or layoffs as a last resort. If you are willing to sacrifice, like I said, some income from your end, if you'll be okay for the next 3 to 6 months, where you can survive without having to get a check as a manager, maybe reuse that investment to your employees. If you have a smaller business, maybe you employ maybe like 3to 5 individuals. There's some business that have been in it for 20, 30 years that just employ just 5 people. So if you're able to kind of just assist on that end, I understand, then definitely, I would definitely recommend it. But again, like I said, everybody is their own boss, no pun
Yeah.
intended. So it is definitely up to you. But for our workers that may be facing layoffs from certain um management, I would say, or furloughs, excuse me, as well as financial moves you can make during COVID-19 is something that we can kind of highlight for those individuals. Um, of course, check with your employment, check with your state employment agency to see what you're recommended. I think it's $600 for however long. I don't know the specific guidelines of that in terms of how much you get as an unemployment
For
check.
unemployment, yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard 600.
yeah, but again, some states vary. I know that Massachusetts is one of the highest, is I think Mississippi is one of the lowest. So it really depends on your state. So I
And the
would definitely
standard,
look at
the
that.
cost of living is different in all these places. So I mean, even
Hmm.
though one state might be getting 300 and others getting 700, I mean, the prices of your local economy will reflect that. It's not
Hmm.
like you're getting ripped off. I'm
Hmm.
saying it should be equivalent more or less.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, just to kind of add is what he's saying, but to get into what we kind of were discussing in terms of financial moves you can make through COVID-19, we just want to share a few points. I'm going to share a few of mine. Ramy can come in and share a few of his. For the listeners, for our viewers, if you want to kind of just follow those, we definitely recommend doing it. We've had success in doing it as well in terms of these financial moves we've kind of are pointing out to you. But the first one I do want to start, like I said, is first, boost your emergency fund. If you haven't started a savings fund, I recommend doing so. If you even are saving just a little bit for those that may still be employed, do it. Because again, as you guys seen, this is definitely something that was unpredictable. Everybody took a hit, even for those that are still employed, in terms of just a standard of living. So I would say boost your emergency fund, and again, I'll, yep, exactly. Boost your emergency fund. That's the most important. Start with $1,000 if you don't have anything saved in a fund for those that may be able to do it. For those that don't, I would say cover your four walls, the four essential walls right now. If you are unemployed, which is food, transportations, utilities, and expenses. So in terms of and transportation,
I'm
excuse me.
making note of that because I never heard that term, the four walls.
The four walls. I'm not going to take credit. I did get this from Dave Ramsey, but this is something that I like and I'm going to use, which is, I'm going to actually correct myself, is food, shelter, transportation, and utilities for those that may not have work right now. If you are getting a check from the government or however you're making ends meet, if you already have your emergency fund, kudos to you. Use it to cover that if you're unemployed right now and
Those
are
are like
trying
the
to find some.
essentials, right? The
The
bare minimum.
essentials, yeah, the bare minimum, exactly. Another thing, for those that may be invested in the stock market, do not touch your stock portfolio right now. The worst thing you can be is a very passive investor, a tentative investor, somebody that, because you see a bear market is basically where the stock market is dropping very low. I have to sell everything because the stock market is so unpredictable. Ramy will tell you, I will tell you, anybody else will tell you that knows how this works. It doesn't matter that we're in a economic downturn. This happens even when the economy is stable. Excuse me. So
Right.
again, do not sell your whole stock. Yeah, Ramy.
Right. To touch on, market discussion really quickly, the stock market is very unpredictable, as he said, and nobody knows anything for certain. Even the smartest traders are taking the best educated guesses and planning to hope for the best. So don't think anybody knows anything. But if you the good thing about the stock market is you use historical data a lot. And if you look at past historical recessions and major events that cause bear markets or big economic downturns, if you look at them side by side, a lot of them, the market from the highs, the amount it pulls back is about 30, 40, 50, 60%. Meanwhile, during this COVID crisis, we're only the market from all-time highs. I can't be 100% on the dot, but it was about 15 to 18% down. Meaning, if this is the same level of crisis as we've seen in 2008, in major events of the past, we're on the very early. I still think we're on the early side of this. This is my prediction, and nothing is a fact. But again, I think we're still early on the downturn. The market has not seen the full effect of the whole pandemic. So what I would suggest is taking it easy for now. Ride the market out for a little bit. Do not trade emotionally. That's one of the main things I learned when I was a day trader. That was my first job out of college. They told me, do not trade emotionally. A lot of people, they trade with emotions. When their stock is, they're $1,000 in the money, meaning they're profiting $1,000, and now all of a sudden it's only worth $400 of profit. They're thinking, oh shoot, I just lost $600 worth of money. I need to sell now. Meanwhile, like, no, that could be an opportunity for you to lower your average price if you buy lower. That could be an opportunity for you to make notes and jot down where you would have sold and then ride it out a little bit more. That's a personal method I like to do, because everybody's emotional, but don't act on them. So I would make a note, oh, this almost made me sell right here. Make a note of that price. I guarantee you, if you visit that in a month or 2 months or maybe 6 months, a year, eventually it'll be higher than where you would have sold it. So patience, plan your trades, and do not trade emotionally. That's what I'll say for the market.
Yeah, I mean, just yeah, adding on to what he's saying. For me, like I said, you don't want to sell right now. Just be smart. Don't be emotional when you're selling or buying. You have to really be critical. Think about what you're buying. A few key pointers I can maybe give to the audience that are interested in buying some stock during these times. Maybe you have a little extra cash now that you're home. For those that are employed, for those even those that may not, if you have a little extra money, what I would say is look at the market in terms of how economically and how from a global standpoint how things are affected. What I mean to say is that companies that are delivery workers, delivery companies will probably be a good stock right now. Cleaning supply like a Clorox, like a whatever type of stock like that you can look at. Subscription stocks in terms of Netflix, Disney
Ooh,
Plus, whatever. Those are stocks right now because that's what's in high demand. That's usually a good turn as to what type of stock you could look into. What is in high demand right now and what probably will be in high demand for a while. As you guys have been following the news, the best investor follows trends, follows the news, follows what's going on right now. So what I mean to say is that they're expecting a new wave of COVID-19 to hit. So the thing
yes,
is, we really have to be cognizant in terms of how we're moving, and for those investors, what you're investing in. You're not going to buy something that's not really in high demand. If you're investing in Delta, America Airlines, good
oof,
luck. Good luck with that stock, because I promise you, even if they let us out right now, that those companies are not going to rebound for a couple more years because of
yes.
what the turn that they've hit, because they need continuous travel, continuous like movement. And if that's been stopped for months, which is now even looking like a year or so,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
gonna
that's
feel
not
the effects of that for
a
not just a
while.
month or two. Don't expect, Boeing and United to bounce back in a snap. Those are more long-term effects. Um, I would say if anybody, I've heard a lot of people come to me and say, I want to learn about stocks. I've heard this is a good time to buy. Yes and no. Please do your own research. Do not just go buying anything that people tell you to buy. Everything needs to be researched and plan your trades. But what I will say is we have just come out. Market correction is the term for when a trend has gone on for too long. Say, for example, the market's been going up, 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 up for years. A market correction would be because nothing goes up forever. What goes up must come down. So a correction would be when it starts to drop, when it starts to come back down to a more equilibrium level. So market corrections are normal. And what I wanted to touch on was that we're coming off of the longest bull market the market has seen. We have, in the last few years, the market has pretty much been, for the most part, straight up like that. So this market correction, boosted by COVID, of course, wasn't totally unexpected. So do not fear the market. See it as an opportunity. Things are cheaper now than they were a few months ago. Just be prepared for a rocky ride, because any given day I've watched the market go from 10% up to the next day 20% down to the next day 30%. It's just been a roller coaster ride. So if you're looking to be a long-term investor, look for the best opportunity to buy low and try to sit on your hands until the market is a little more stable. Because if you're a new trader right now, even experienced traders are trying to hold on and figure out what's going on. It's times like this is the most unpredictable. So if you're a new trader, a novice trader, please do your research, ask your questions, but try to sit on your hands and don't act impulsively. Again, that's all I want to say. I know I've spoken a lot on it, but it's a touchy subject for me. I don't want you all to think easy money in the stock market and then you mismanage it. All right, complete.
Yeah, as what he kind of said. So, to kind of add on to what he's saying again, there are also other alternatives. You have fractional shares. I'm not going to get into the definition. It's just you're buying whole shares. Like example of Apple's at like 280, you can get as low as maybe like $20 or 10. Cash App offers it. Robinhood offers it. Those are just
Fractional
companies
shares,
that
yeah.
you can look at. If for those that might want to get cheaper stocks, or you could just look at general stocks. Some companies right now that are good are also at a cheaper price than maybe the bigger
Right.
ones.
And
So
for anybody that does not know, a fractional share means, if you wanted to buy Netflix is currently trading at 300 something dollars. If you don't have, if you wanted to buy a couple of shares, it's a lot of money for somebody that doesn't have disposable income. But say you had, $100 bill and you just deposited in the bank, you wanted to put that in the stock market, you can buy a third of that Netflix stock. That's what fractional shares means. You could put $100, $50 versus one whole share of that lump sum. So you could even buy Amazon in fractional shares, even though that's trading at in the thousands. So anything is accessible in modern day. It's kind of insane.
yeah,
I'd like to
so
touch on another opportunity for people during the COVID, if I can, Charles.
mhm.
Um, Another thing that has come about during the COVID crisis is mortgage rates and federal interest rates are at all-time lows. It hasn't been this low in a very, very long time. Meaning that is the rate that if you were to buy a house, you have to pay a mortgage, you have to take a loan out most of the time. They're going to give you a rate, an interest rate on that mortgage based on the Fed rate. The rate is low right now, meaning it is as cheap a time as ever to take a loan out. I know Charles, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here. Charles said loans, he doesn't like loans and he.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree on your end because I mean, for me, like I said, I'm not a loan person, but again, I'm not going to. There's two sides to look at it. Some
Right.
people might, be interested in it, but I don't recommend doing it from my end because again, like I said, it just depends on. You have to look at in terms of what your loan, how you're gonna rework that, how you're gonna refinance a certain loan, especially for a mortgage. A mortgage, again, especially if you're doing a 15, 30 year. So the thing is, if you're already going to have to rework that, the thing is, what percentage are you going to have to give up? I know they give a I don't know the specific details in terms of the housing loans, but those interests could be very, very high. So it depends. And the thing is, they look at in terms of how old you are. So if you are a certain age range and you're getting a home and you're basically taking a loan out, maybe from a bank or whatever type of loan, private loan company that might be helping you to finance your house. The thing is that if you're younger, 9 out of 10 times, that may be even worse for you because of the fact that in terms of you have to look at inflation and you have to look at just in terms of because again you're going against the dollar and the dollar always is going to fluctuate, especially in a down market like this. So the thing is, the next turn of events, once we eventually come out of this in the next maybe like couple years, you're $10,000 loan, you're probably gonna have to pay back close to 20. So that's just something that you can look at. And like I said, if you're willing to do that, some people may have the money. Hey, kudos to you. But for me, I'll never do it. Never.
Well,
Never.
real quick to play devil's advocate, I was just gonna say that while interest rates are low, I know a lot of people are refinancing, meaning they have a locked-in rate. They can negotiate. We talked about this as the deal of negotiation, the art of negotiation on our last podcast episode.
Mhm.
Try to negotiate lower rates because I know Charles mentioned there are negative side effects that could happen in the long run. But again, if you can lock in even a 0.1% decrease on a $500,000 loan, that really extrapolated can it's the key is lock it in. Don't let it fluctuate on you. So have those conversations, see where you can refinance because there are a lot of opportunities out there right now. Banks are a little backed up though because everybody's trying to do it. That's what I was reading.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So for our home workers, home owners, excuse me, I said workers, owners. That's something you can look at either side of what we're discussing right now. For me, like I said, I'm against any type of loan, just from personal experience of doing that early on and facing the repercussions. And for those that may be looking to get a loan, you just read the guidelines, I would say, before taking out the loan or applying for the loan. So that's what I have for that side. Um, as as well, additionally, I would say for those that are still working, keep putting money away in retirement. That could be your 401k, your IRA. A rule of thumb, I would say 15% if you can do it. If you can't do it right now in the downturn, I would say the max you should do is maybe like 7 to 10%. Speak with your employer; they are able to renegotiate that percentage right now during this time. So I will look at that as well. The reason being for the younger audiences, which is I think most of our audience, don't take out your loan right now. Don't be tempted to. I said loan. Take out your 401, your retirement funds. The reason being is because you want to be in the habit of having your money fully invested in retirement before taking it out at the age of, I believe, 65, right? So the thing is, if you're taking out your money now, especially, I know that the government, I always put quotation marks, is saying it's okay to do it without no penalty. The thing is that what happens in the next crisis? What happens then? Are you gonna take out your money now? So let's say you save 15,000, you decide to take 5,000 out, and then you take out another 5,000 in the year after that. So you have to rework again an additional 10,000, which is going to take you a lot longer to accrue, as opposed to if you just were consistent from the jump and then just kept building until you hit your retirement age. I'm not going to speak to the older crowd if we do have some older listeners, because again, you are near retirement, so that's okay. I think by now you already know what you're going to do with that money. But if you're younger, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, I think right now do not touch it. There's other ways, there's other methods that we articulated, as Ramy will articulate for you, as to how you can kind of save your money or try to get other means of money, as we've already articulated, as I emphasized. So do not touch your retirement fund if you are not of age.
Right.
That's all.
I mean, just a general rule of thumb: if you're gonna pull out your money from your retirement fund every time there's major disruptions, you're gonna end up with nothing in it by the time you're ready to retire. Or you're gonna hinder yourself in the long run. The key to a retirement fund is that you're putting in it for the long game. Do not play the short game. Coronavirus will not be. COVID, sorry, 19 will not be a thing hopefully in 5-10 years, but you know what will still be a thing? You're retiring in 30 years. So do not, again, that's the same thing as trading. Don't react emotionally. Trust that your money is going to play for you, work for you. You always want to have your money working for you.
Exactly. And the thing is, as humans, we are the mind of repetition. So if you are taking your money out now, you're gonna take it out again and you're gonna take it out again. And at that time we're gonna be out of this COVID-19 pandemic, and you're gonna have to pay the 10% penalty for taking it out. So for making the withdrawal. So don't even get in the habit, excuse me, of doing it. Excuse me. Just make sure that you have other means of funding, so you don't have to tap into any type of loan, any type of retirement funding right now, especially if you are younger. The next piece is, like I said, um, reworking your budget for food, shelter, utilities, transportation. If you are have a stimulus check, if you get a check from the government right now, for those that may be unemployed, excuse me, do not pay off your debt if you don't. if you don't have a job right now. I think you can put off on hold. A lot of companies, even credit card companies right now, are basically doing deferments where you don't have to pay any interest on it as well. I would speak to your company as well before doing it, because that doesn't apply to all companies, but most companies are doing that right now. So you can use that to kind of take care of the four essential walls, as we emphasized.
Right. That should be your priority, is those essential walls. Make sure you're surviving, your family's taken care of. The loans can, be dealt with once you're more secure on the financial side.
Exactly. So again, for those, and if you do, or if you're still working, still making money, continue to do the steps of paying down your debt, putting money into your savings. And we call it emergency fund because we use it for any emergency. Your savings should be only used for emergencies, uh, or something where you don't have to tap into right now. You should just focus on your checking account. You use your checking for your daily expenses, but your savings is if you want to get a home, rent, whatever the case is, buy. That's what I think you should be using certain things like that for. Or in a situation like this, at a job loss, that's what the emergency fund should be used for. And the most important rule, as I want to kind of bring it all in, is file your taxes early. Yeah, I know that the nation right now is July 15th, for the most part. But the thing is that you don't know what you're gonna have to withhold in your 2019 taxes. You don't know for the business owners what type of payout you have to do for those taxes. So the thing is that it's better to file early right
Always.
now. Whilst you're home, you're thanks to the technological era we're in, taxes can be done virtually now. So it doesn't have you don't have to go into the your accounting
Right.
office or whatever the case to get a file. You can just do it over the phone with your accountant, and he can go over to the computer with you to go over those. So again, file early just to make sure that you don't owe, or you don't have to pay again, or pay back, excuse me. So again, just to kind of bring everything in, as we kind of articulated, is, like I said, during this COVID-19 crisis, we know that right now things are tough, but it won't last forever. But what you can do during this time, and I'll let Ramy speak to his part, but what I'm going to say to bring it in is what you can do this time is, for those that are unemployed, look for other methods to get paid. As we said, you can do part-time work. You can, if you have some type of emergency funding or a type of government assistance of payment, you use that to take care of your four essential needs right now, which is food, shelter, transportation, and utilities. So those are the main focuses. If you are investing to the stock market, for those that may be still doing it, you're thinking about selling it to get some money or whatever the case is, do not do it, because again, it doesn't matter that we're in a COVID-19 pandemic. Downturns happen in the market all the time. So the smart thing to do is you look at companies, or you look at currencies like a gold or something that doesn't get affected through this economic downturn. That's something that I want to kind of emphasize to you guys. We will bring this, and we will bring the money that's needed to ourselves by doing the smart financial moves. Say with me, I will bring the money needed to make the right financial moves for me. We can all do it. We all are facing catastrophes during this COVID-19 pandemic. But again, like I said, the ones that make the smart business moves, the ones that make the smart moves, and that allow you to be taken care of during this time, will be the ones that will succeed. Ramy, your thoughts?
Yeah, closing thoughts would be, Charles kind of touched on this, so I will give you a definition. If you want to look this up, look up defensive stocks slash defense stocks. Those are stocks, if you're interested in stocks right now, are stocks that they don't move heavily in relation to the economy. If the economy goes sharply up or crashes down, these are generally stable stocks. You can look up a list of those, do some reading. But yeah, I would say if you're unemployed or you're going through financial, difficulties during this time, please take care of the four essentials primarily, but also use this opportunity, turn the chaos into opportunity. I keep saying that. Perhaps you've wanted to start a business for years and you haven't had the chance, and now you're furloughed or laid off. Maybe now you can have the chance to set the business plan into motion. Try to take little steps to build a foundation to come out of this COVID strong. Make a business plan, create whatever it is you wanted to create on the creative side. If you're still working, try to lower your expenses, refinance, try to negotiate your expenses. Um, most importantly, I would say be kind, be empathetic, because again, this is not a race issue. This is not a country versus country or an economic standing issue. This is a human issue, and these are the times where humans standing in solidarity as a whole, regardless of where you come from, is really going to shine through. So shout outs to all the healthcare workers out there, and shout outs to all the frontline people that are making the country still keep running. My prayers out to everybody. um, we'll be out here putting out as much financial info as we can for you, but again, you can navigate all this chaos into opportunity to set yourself up for a better future, and I hope you do so. I'm
Exactly.
complete.
Exactly. As he's articulated. And for the final one, and I've final comment, like I said, just to piggyback, take care for those that are unemployed. Take care of your four walls: food, transportation, utilities, and what's the other one? Shelter.
Ha!
So that's most important. Most important on that note, like I said, if you are putting money away in retirement, what I recommend is 15% of your income. Everybody's home, so you're not going out there and doing any vacation, so you can manage it. If you do still have a consistent income, 15% in your 401 or IRA. If you can't do it, I recommend 10% as a max. That's what I have for right now. For those that are tuning in, again, thank you for tuning in for our
Thank you
Apple
so much.
Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube viewership. We wanted to make this episode special for you guys because I know these are needs. These are questions that everybody's been asking us. So we wanted to take time to just kind of articulate that to the masses. Again, thank you
Absolutely.
guys. Stay safe and
Take
check us
care.
out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, episode 16 of the Danso Experience. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Take care, everybody.